If you've been following the headlines this week, you'll have seen President Ramaphosa's office claiming they've recovered nearly 11 billion rand and completed 48% of their promised actions. Sounds impressive, doesn't it? Well, stick around, because I'm about to show you exactly how they've been cooking these books. Welcome to the Rianro Show, where I look at those stories that affect every South African in some other way. Let me start with a simple question. When Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, the man who led the State Capture Commission, publicly criticizes the very president who's supposed to be implementing his recommendations, shouldn't that tell you something? Just last week, Zondo expressed his pain at having to swear in cabinet ministers with serious state capture findings against them. His exact words were that it was like the president was saying, "I don't care what you have found about these people. I think they are good enough to be promoted." That's not my interpretation. That's coming directly from the mouth of the man who spent 3 years investigating state capture. And yet, here we have a progress report claiming everything is going swimmingly. Let's take a look at the recovery figures, because this is where the magic really happens. The government claims they've recovered 10.9 billion rand. Sounds like a lot of money. But here's what they don't tell you in their press releases. 4.8 billion rand of that is just SARS collecting taxes that were already owed to the state. That's not recovery. That's basic tax collection. Another 2.55 billion rand comes from the ABB settlement, a corporate plea bargain, not a criminal prosecution. And 1.12 billion from McKinsey. They returned that money voluntarily back in 2018 to save their reputation. So when you strip away the accounting tricks and the double counting, the actual criminal asset recoveries are a fraction of what they're claiming. Meanwhile, 10.6 billion sits under restraint. Money that may never be recovered if prosecutions fail. And judging by their track record, that's exactly what's going to happen. Which brings us to prosecutions. And the smell is distinctly fishy. The Commission made 218 recommendations for criminal investigation. 3 years later, how many successful prosecutions do we have? 4. 4 successful prosecutions out of 218 recommendations. That's a 1.8% success rate, ladies and gentlemen. In any other profession, that would be grounds for dismissal. In South African law enforcement, it gets you a progress report claiming victory. Moses Mokoena got a suspended sentence. Duduzile Mayeni was fined 120,000 rand, and she's deceased. An unnamed state security agency official got 18 years suspended. Meaning they won't see the inside of a cell. Only Daniel Ntemkulu from Prasa actually got real jail time, 15 years. So when they tell you they're making progress on accountability, remember, 1.8% success rate. That's not progress. That's failure dressed up as a government press release. But perhaps the most insulting part of this whole charade is the legislative theatre. They're celebrating laws that exist only on paper. The Public Procurement Act, enacted but not commenced. The Intelligence Services reforms, passed but creating constitutional challenges. The National State Enterprises Bill, still sitting in Parliament after being tabled in January 2024. This is government by press release. They pass laws with great fanfare, then quietly shelve them without implementation on dates. It's like building a house and celebrating because you've approved the architectural plans. Never mind that there's no foundation, no walls, and no roof. I want to talk about something that doesn't appear in the government statistics, the human cost of this performance. While politicians play accounting games with recovery figures, real people continue to suffer from the legacy of state capture. Our trains don't run because Prasa was looted. Our power grid struggles because Eskom was captured. Our state-owned enterprises remain dysfunctional because the same appointment processes that enabled capture are still in place. The ANC's cadre deployment policy, the very mechanism the Zondo Commission identified as the key enabler of state capture, remains unchanged. They've created new oversight bodies, passed new laws, established new committees. But the fundamental problem persists. The ANC still controls who gets appointed to key positions in our state institutions. Civil society organizations, the very groups that supported the Commission's work, have issued scathing assessments of the implementation process. The Civil Society Working Group on State Capture, representing over 20 organizations, including Corruption Watch, describes the government's efforts as generally lackluster. These aren't political opponents speaking. These are organizations that worked alongside the Commission for 3 years, that provided evidence, that supported the process. And they're saying the implementation is failing. When the people who helped expose state capture are telling you that the response is inadequate, maybe it's time to listen. So what's really going on here? Why create this elaborate illusion of progress when the reality is so different? The answer is simple: political survival. This progress report serves multiple audiences. It attempts to reassure international investors using this grand illusion that South Africa is serious about fighting corruption. It provides talking points for ANC politicians facing tough questions. It creates an impression of action while avoiding the real confrontations with powerful interests that real reform would require. It is a guidebook, on paper, to avoid accountability. But there's a cost to this performance politics. Every inflated statistic, every misleading claim, every celebration of paper victories erodes public trust, little by little, and there is little to nothing left. When people stop believing that accountability is possible, democracy itself becomes vulnerable. Let me end with Chief Justice Zondo's warning, because I think it captures exactly where we are as a country. He said, "South Africa risks having no country worth calling our home, unless something very drastic and effective is done soon." 3 years after his commission delivered its findings, we're still waiting for that drastic and effective action. Instead, we get progress reports that mistake motion for movement, activity for achievement, promises for performance. What are the chances that we will see genuine institutional reform that confronts entrenched interests? Or are we stuck on the path of continued decline, disguised by increasingly sophisticated public relations? Based on this latest progress report, with its statistical manipulation and selective achievements, it's clear what path the government has chosen. The question is, why are South Africans allowing the ANC to get away with it? If you have any thoughts, please add them to the comment section. Thanks for watching, and if you found any value in this video, please do like, share and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.